Before I start, I'd like to say R.I.P. the Big George Foreman. One of the greatest heavyweights ever, definitely was a part of the golden age of boxing I talk about. Now, when we think about George Foreman, Joe Frazier, when he lifts Joe Frazier up with the uppercut in that second round, win the heavyweight championship. And then there's the other fight with Ali, the Rumble in the Jungle. He retired from boxing and got 2 attempts to be heavyweight champion again. First, he fought Holyfield that was in his prime, and he came up short in that fight. And he was losing a Michael Moore fight till he landed that big hammer and knocked out Michael Moore. And those were very special moments in George Foreman's career. But the best fight I've seen him in is with Ron Lyle. Ron Lyle, fresh out the joint. That was a war. That was one of the greatest heavyweight fights I ever seen. R.I.P. to George Foreman. You will be missed. Now I'm watching Jesus Ramos Saturday night, and I'm watching him rip those body shots to his opponent. When we talk about 154 fights, we're talking about Vergil Ortiz against Boachuk, a rematch, which is a very good fight. We talk about Terence Crawford fighting any of those guys before he moved up. We got Fundora, who's a unified champ. That'd be an excellent fight to see Vergil Ortiz win. I want to see Vergil Ortiz become a champion. But the fight we don't talk about a lot, and the fight I want to see, is Jesus Ramos Jr. against Vergil Ortiz. I think that fight would mirror Eric Terrible against Marco Tonio Barrera. The only difference is that fight will be at 154. If you can smell what I'm cooking, this fight right here would have definitely the ingredients to be the fight of the year. Now, Shawn Porter was recently on Marco Boxing, and he has some interesting things to say about Terence Crawford versus Canelo. Shout out to Marco Boxing. The clip is about a minute long. I don't own the right to this content. It's for educational purposes only. Let's listen to what Shawn Porter has to say on Marco Boxing. Then I will respond.
All the way back where they was before he fought Errol Spence. Yeah. And now the thing is, how's he gonna beat Canelo? He's smaller than him, and he didn't look that good against the 54-pounder. How's he gonna take a 68 punch? I'm gonna be the last one to tell everybody this dude's been getting ready for Canelo Alvarez for about 3 years.
Damn.
Which is why it was hard for him to make 54, which is why it was hard for him to make 47 when he fought Errol Spence.
So he told you years ago that he was getting ready for Canelo?
No, I just know him.
Oh, okay.
I know him, and I'm smart enough to pick up on everything. My man's been packing on muscle. When it's hard for him to make 47, it's because he's got too much muscle. He can't break down the muscle. Mm-hmm. 54, more muscle. So especially they wait until September to have this fight. Okay. That's in Bud's best interest to make this fight happen in September.
As usual, I probably agree with half of what Shawn Porter says, maybe a quarter of what he says, but I do agree with one thing. Terence Crawford looked more weight drained than Errol Spence at the pressers. When people were making excuses, the reason Terence Crawford beat him is because Errol Spence is drained at the weight at 147 already. And I would counter them and say, I thought Terence Crawford looked more drained than Errol Spence did. Remember, Terence Crawford has been at 147 for 5 years at that point. And this is a fight that should have happened 3 or 4 years before it happened. When people talk about Terence Crawford's record, he don't have Keith Thurman on there, Danny Garcia, which Danny Garcia is overrated. And he fought Shawn Porter after he lost his title and he was on his way out. The reason that happened is because the PBC froze him out. I think Crawford's original plan was to fight all the big dogs at 147 and clean out 147 and become undisputed. But the politics of boxing did not allow that. But Errol Spence was able to get all the belts except WBO. So Crawford fought Errol Spence to become undisputed. And then after that, the plan was to move up to 154 and fight Jermell Charlo. But Jermell had other plans. He saw a big bag in 168, and he fought Canelo. I'm not knocking him, but he fought Canelo, said he was going to move back down, never did, got stripped of all his titles. Before that, Crawford wasn't even thinking about fighting Canelo because he always said he was too big, the fight would never happen, it's a fantasy fight. After a couple of thoughts about it and people asked him about it, he says, why not? Canelo's undisputed champion. Well, he was undisputed champion at the time. Now, if he beats Skull on May, he'll be undisputed once again, and Terence Crawford could be 3-time undisputed champion. They said he wants a payday. Who doesn't want a payday? And he also wants to be 3-time undisputed champion if Canelo happens to beat Skull. So I disagree. Canelo wasn't always on Terence Crawford's radar, but it's the quickest way for him to be 3 times undisputed. He's not going to get it at 154 because I don't think any of those champions would fight him at 154. Plus, Canelo has all the belts. Or he will have all the belts after May 3rd. But anyway, leave your thoughts and comments below. What do you think about Shawn Porter's comments? Jay Beezy, I'm gone.